Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon and The Blackest Heart, both published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing the brand new Stephen King novel, Billy Summers. Yep, just came out today. I bought it today, read it today, just like I buy and read every Stephen King novel since I was 13 years old on the day of its release. No different now. If you've been following my channel, you know we've been reviewing all the Stephen King novels in order of publication. I think we're up to Dreamcatcher now, so we're quite a ways into it. But when he does come out with a new novel, I do jump ahead and read and review it. So we're going out of order for this novel. Forgive me. It is a new one. I want to get a review out because I just read it today and it's dynamite. Let's talk about the cover first, because in my reviews we always talk about the graphic design and the cover illustration, because you know I love graphic design and book illustrations, and I love the way books are packaged. And Scribner, the publisher, did a great job with this one. I love the gold foil on his name and the title of the book. We've got a car going down a road, which in some trees, which at first I didn't understand when I was reading the book why that would be the cover image of a car. But the book eventually does become sort of like a road trip buddy movie, kind of like one of those road trip buddy movies that you see. It's kind of like one of those type of stories eventually. Another thing is I listened to the first half of the book on audible.com. It was narrated by someone named Paul Sparks. I don't know who that is, but did an adequate job of the narration, so good on that. And then I read the second half of the book, just like a normal person reads a book. That's all I gotta say. What's it about? I like this book quite a bit. It's got everything that you love about Stephen King, except for the supernatural, the horror, the ghosts. This is a straight up mystery novel type thriller. There is no weird horror stuff or supernatural things. It's not X-Files. It's none of that. None of that. We are, just so you know, going into it, this is a straight up thriller novel, and it is dynamite. It's about Billy Summers, an Iraq war veteran who was a sniper. And now that he's done with the war, he's become sort of a hitman with his sniper skills. And bad people pay him to do sniper jobs. But with one caveat, he will only do a sniper job and an assassination if he knows the person he's killing is also a bad person. He will not kill an innocent person. He will only assassinate bad people. Kind of like the Dexter Show. So, the sort of the mafia, it seems like it's the Las Vegas mafia or the casino mafia. They give Billy Summers a job. They need him to do a hit. They need him to sniper a person who's coming out of a courthouse. It's going to be a very it's like a big trial. There's this bad guy. He might get off. He might not be prosecuted or some such thing. And they want him to be sniped on the stairway of the courthouse in a small town. So they set Billy Summers up in the small town. They're going to pay him like $2 million. They're going to pay him a lot. Maybe even more than that. I think it's more than that. I think they forward $500,000 into his bank account just to listen to him. And then they want to pay him a lot once the job is done. But the thing is the job, they don't know when the court case is going to happen. They don't know. But they want Billy Summers to be living in that town for a while, just in case it happens sooner or later or whenever. So they set him up in this town in an office building that's right across from the courthouse steps. So he's got, just like Lee Harvey Oswald in 11/22/63, with the sniper rifle out the 5th floor window, he's going to have a shot at the guy. And so they set him up in this office, and then they also want him to live in the town to get, used to the town. And so they set him up in the town also with a house. So he can live there and pretend to work in the office. And what happens is he pretends to work in the office, but he has to have a cover story because he doesn't know whether he's going to be there for a month or a year. So his cover story is the casino mafia guys give him this cover story. It's like, well, you're going to pretend that you're an author, and this is your office, and you're doing research or whatever. You're just using this office as a place to kind of your author retreat, and that's what you're going to tell everybody in the office building. That's what you're going to tell everybody in the neighborhood that we set you up to live in. And that's the thing. Similar setup to Robert B. Parker's Mortal Stakes. That's why I have this book over here. Mortal Stakes has the same setup. It's about a baseball pitcher for the Boston Red Sox who's throwing games, and Robertson Spencer, the detective Spencer, has to infiltrate the Boston Red Sox to investigate this pitcher, and his cover story is, I'm an author working on a book about the Boston Red Sox. I think Stephen King was reading this book and got the idea or something like that, because the setup is almost exactly the same. Anyway, that's why I put that book over there. So that's the setup. Great setup. So now we get to follow Billy Summers as he lives in this small town, anticipating doing a sniper hit on a bad guy that's going to be on the courthouse stairs, and with the subplot that he's a fake author writing a fake book. Well, the thing is, he gets bored in the office. He gets bored. So he actually starts writing a book. He actually starts writing a book, and it turns out to be sort of a memoir of his life as a child and his adventures in the Iraq War. And it's very riveting, and he writes it, and he starts getting into it. He's like, I might be able to be an author. I could be an author. And he starts like really getting into it. And not only that, but the small town he lives in, he's sort of a master of disguise. And so he doesn't really want to live in the house that the mafia set him up with. He kind of wants to live elsewhere. So he's a master of disguise, and he comes up with several different personas within that town that he plays, and he's got disguises he wears. So he makes relationships with a lot of different people who don't even know who he is, because he's a different person in all these disguises. And anyway, so he gets in the neighborhood that the mafia guys set him up with. He gets involved with all the families in there, and he starts to really like them. He gets invited to game nights and to dinners, and he gets to know all the kids, and he's really enjoying himself living in this town. And he develops relationships, and especially with a girl named Alice. And I will tell you, towards the end of this book, we're actually about a third of the way through the book to the end, it really becomes sort of a buddy road trip story with him and Alice. And I will tell you right now that I won't tell you what happens during the assassination attempt and his sniper attempt. I will tell you, though, that there is some trigger warnings. If you are adverse to reading anything about pedophilia or anything about rape, stay away from this book, because I think it is probably has some of the most graphic stuff in it that Stephen King's ever done on those two subjects. And we know he's addressed those two subjects a lot in his books. And this one's probably the most hard-hitting. But Billy Summers and Alice, a young girl in the town, there's this thing where he sort of saves her from a sexual... I won't even get into it. I won't even tell you whether he saves her or not. But things happen. The assassination attempt doesn't seem like it's on the up and up. He becomes very suspicious of the Vegas mafia guys that have hired him to do this. He doesn't trust them. And the book eventually turns into a sort of a buddy road trip revenge story with Billy Summers and this young girl Alice, and with the side story of his own book that he's writing about his horrific time that he spent in the Iraq War. And it's kind of a lot of different things with some great... Now, does this tie into his other Stephen King novels? You know, there's the Stephen King multiverse where the Dark Tower and all the bad guys are sort of all tied in together. No, but there are some great references to the Overlook Hotel and The Shining and some things in Vegas and Wendover, Utah, and some different places that we have visited before in Stephen King novels. So if he does throw some nuggets at us, and I don't think I can say any more about the book other than as we're anticipating him pulling off this assassination, and as we're following his life in this town that he's building for himself, we really start to feel for him. Like, when he assassinates this person, everybody's gonna know that it was him, and yet and he's made such great friendships, and he really feels guilty that he's gonna disappoint all these new friends he's made. It was very gripping, and like I said, I can't get into much more of that because really, so far, I've only talked about the first third of the book, and like I said, I can't even tell you anything about the second 2/3 without giving away, and I already kind of have with this road trip revenge buddy Bonnie and Clyde type of thing that happens with Billy and Alice. Anyway, that's about all I'm going to say. It's almost like this is another one of those books that Stephen King was meant to write. As I was reading through it, and Stephen King's novels are just dripping with that small town ambiance and that small town feel, and as Billy is living in this small town, you really want to live there with him. I mean, Stephen King just pulls that out of you. It's almost like, as I was reading this, I'm almost like, I've read this before. It's like I read this in every Stephen King novel, and that's why I keep coming back. It's because this is a story that needs to be told, and it seems like only Stephen King could tell it. And it's got a very heartfelt ending to it, and I just dug it. And like I said, I read Stephen King books the day they come out, and I usually read them the whole way through in the very day. So I read 100 pages an hour. This is a 500-page book. 5 hours later, I was done with it. I loved it. Loved. I'm going to give Billy Summers a solid 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. This is a good, great, bordering on great Stephen King novel. I would recommend it to anybody who's a Stephen King fan, or if you're not a Stephen King fan, you're going to love this as just a straight thriller novel. And that's about all I'm going to say. 9 out of 10 for Billy Summers.